Welcome to the Labonte Drive kitchen at the Reset Ritual, Labonte Nutrition and Wellness. Yeah. Cafe, Airbnb, and gourmet kitchen. All right, I got all the ingredients. While the water's getting ready, I'm grabbing all the ingredients. Now this is going to be a bulletproof coffee style or butter brew style. I take grass-fed butter, some coconut oil, maybe a little bit more. You can start off doing 1 tablespoon of each, and then I go up from there. It's going to take your body a little getting used to this much fat in your coffee, and caffeine's a diuretic, and if you have too much fat, your body flushes it out. So start small in the fat and then work your way up. I like to choose my coffee locally roasted, so it's fresh. If I had a vacuum sealer, I'd put these beans in like a vacuum sealer or something like that. I like to grind my beans fresh. I notice a difference grinding them. I like doing it by hand. I live on a bus and I'm on solar power. It also makes it more of I'm moving while making my coffee, which I love movement. I love, and especially getting up in the morning, the coffee's supposed to wake me up. So having a hand grinder helps me. Also, for those days that I maybe shouldn't drink coffee and I'm like on the fence, I'm like, I don't want to grind it. And if I don't want to grind the coffee beans, then I don't probably need coffee that day. That's why I have a hand grinder. As you can tell, I'm very precise with how many beans. Not really, just eyeballing everything. I have weighed it out in the past. You can weigh out the water, you can weigh out the coffee beans. That's a nice way to do pour over the style of coffee I'm doing, or if you're doing French press or something like that. So I know about how many beans goes in a typical, what you're supposed to brew pour over. And so I just eyeball it. Bum, bum. This next part is really just making the perfect pour over. There's lots of videos on how to make the perfect pour over, so highly recommend looking up all sorts of other people on that. Ooh, water's getting to boiling. We're almost there. You notice on the bus I have a gas burning stove. That's because gas is important to me as a chef. It's just nice to actually see what I'm working with. No matter if I'm on my bus or another kitchen or a professional kitchen, just seeing the flame, I can tell how hot it's getting. And switching to electric or convection ovens and stuff like that, I don't really know, like it'll be like 5 or 6, but that 5 or 6 is different than the last 5 or 6. And then it can turn off and all sorts of stuff. So just the gas is nice. So I did a little like bloom. I just got the beans wet before and waited about 30 seconds. Absorb that moisture. Now I can slowly fill up this little cone here. I think this gooseneck here is pretty important for this process. I can point where I want the hot water to go. And it doesn't come out too fast. And I'm breaking up the beans they'll stick to the side if I don't do something. I might fill it up like one more time, let it go about halfway. It looks like I'll put in a little bit more and then we'll call it quits. Boom. So now we just let that do its thing. It's working. And the last ingredient I'll add to this is collagen powder. Now, because I am recovering from my ACL, MCL injury, and collagen, getting extra collagen in my diet is really important to me. So I'm going to put that in here. I have this ancestral protein. It's a whole cow. There's organ meats, there's connective tissues. It's like bone broth and organ meats and regular meat in a protein powder, or at least that's what it's supposed to be. So sometimes I'll put that in there. I like to put spices, so I'll put like cinnamon or turmeric on days. If I'm like feeling extra inflammatory, I'll put turmeric in there. Sometimes, if I feel like being naughty, I'll even put honey in there. Now this is like changes. It's not like, right now it's gonna train my body to run on fat because there's butter, there's coconut oil, and there's basically just the caffeine, some spices or whatever, right? None of that is gonna really, it's gonna get my body running in dietary fat mode, and then easy to run into stored fat mode. So if I put honey in there, it doesn't do that as much. So if I put just fat in there, I notice I'm like less hunger later in the day. My intermittent fasting can get longer. It's easier to go longer. If I put honey in there, then I usually get hungry pretty early because I'm not in that ketosis state. And so when would I do that? If I'm going to a brunch with friends and it's more of a party mode, I might have a mimosa or Bloody Mary. If I'm really naughty, then having a little honey with my coffee is not that big of a deal. But if I'm using it like through my work week and I'm intermittent fasting to up focus or lose weight, then it's important to stay with just the butter and the coconut oil. Maybe even skip the collagen, mess with the collagen, see how that sits with you. But this is how I make my coffee. Oh, and then the last thing, I highly recommend using a blender for this. But on the bus, and today on the bus, it's been rainy and overcast for a few days, so I don't have the electrical power to run my blender. So instead of using a blender, I'm going to do this trick that I found out on the bus. And so I put it in there, I shake it a little bit because then the hot air expands. I let that out because if I go right into shaking it, it can explode. Hence, chocolate stains on the roof. Yes, hot beverages in closed containers can be dangerous. So, yeah, the blending, or in this case, shaking, is really important. As you can tell, it kind of, even that little shaking, it froths up like a latte. And that lid is not a good lid. I don't recommend this mason jar technique. I recommend using your own blender or a frother or something like that. But in a pinch, or if you live on a bus, using a mason jar is useful. So there you go. Because of the single origin bean and its pour over, I can taste a brightness and a sweetness in the coffee itself. And then with the butter and the coconut oil, to me, they blend well where you're not getting too much butter and too much coconut oil. You'll definitely tell that there's butter and coconut oil in there. Especially as it sits, it all just raises to the top. So I like giving it a little swirl or using the frother again to come in there and froth it up a little bit. But yeah, it gives just such a rich, decadent flavor to it. It's nice. Really, I love the way it feels in my belly. But yeah, that's the Jerry's Butter Brew, or my keto coffee. That's how I make my coffee in the morning. Thanks for watching.